Power went out at 2:47 a.m., and while everyone else panicked, I just plugged in my backup server and kept working. That's how you handle things when you've been doing this for 15 years. No drama, no running around screaming about cyber attacks. You just flip to Plan B and get the job done. My name's Garrett Patterson. I'm 46 years old, and I've been keeping this company's digital doors locked since before most of these kids knew what a firewall was. Back when we still had to explain to executives why they couldn't use password 123 for everything. See, before I took over cybersecurity, this place was a hacker's playground. We were getting hit every other week. Phishing emails, malware, you name it. One time, some kid in Romania almost made off with our entire customer database because nobody thought to patch the server. That was 2008. I made sure it never happened again. Fast forward to today, and we haven't had a single successful breach. Not one. I built this security system from scratch, piece by piece, like assembling an engine. Every protocol, every backup system, every alert that goes off when someone tries something they shouldn't. It all came from my head, my experience, my late nights figuring out how to keep the bad guys out. Nobody called me a hero for it. Didn't need them to. I had the master passwords, the system documentation, the audit trails that showed exactly who did what and when. More importantly, I had the trust of legal, finance, and IT. They knew better than to touch a security setting without running it by me first. That kind of trust isn't handed out. You earn it one crisis at a time. I wasn't flashy about it either. My office was in the basement next to the server room, where it was always too cold and smelled like electrical equipment. But when something went sideways, a suspicious email, a vendor trying to access files they had no business seeing, a new hire who thought he could install whatever software he wanted, guess who got the call? Me. And I never complained because that's what you do. You do the job. You know what I really liked about it? The quiet control. All these young guys racing around chasing promotions and corner offices, and I'm down in the basement making sure we don't get our pants suit off because some genius thought our firewall was too restrictive. The first crack in the ice came through Slack. Can we chat? Quick sync on security workflows. Reorg stuff. It was from Lance Morrison, our new chief technology officer. Lance was 35, looked like he stepped out of a startup magazine, and talked like he'd swallowed a business school textbook. He'd been there 6 weeks, which in CTO years meant he thought he was ready to rebuild Rome. I walked into his office, one of those glass boxes with the standing desk and motivational posters about disruption. He didn't even look up when I came in, just waved at a chair like I was there to fix his printer. "So I've been reviewing your area," he said, squeezing a stress ball like it contained state secrets. "We're looking to modernize some functions. Get more agile, you know?" "Sure," I said. "What do you need?" Lance smiled like he'd been practicing in the mirror. "Just exploring options. Some of these legacy systems might need consolidation." "You've been here, what, a while?" 15 years, I said. He nodded. "Right. Legacy systems. Lots of overlap these days. We'll loop you in as we finalize things." I left without blinking, but something shifted in me. Not fear, not yet, but that feeling you get when you hear a strange noise in your engine. The next week, I got asked to share my admin login credentials with his assistant for backup purposes. I handed them over, but I created a read-only sandbox clone first. Let them click around in circles if they wanted to. 2 days later, IT called me for help with a security protocol I'd written. I said sure, then realized Lance had already tried to rewrite it. He'd removed 3 verification steps and left our liability, triggers wide open. I fixed it quietly. No fuss, but I could see the writing on the server logs. Around the same time, merger rumors started floating around. Whispers about some Fortune 1000 company sniffing around our books. I didn't pay much attention. I had systems to maintain, security patches to install, a new vendor compliance framework to finish. Besides, I'd already documented everything. Everything, including who accessed what, when, and whether they had any business doing so. I wasn't planning to use that documentation. But here's the thing about building a system, right? When the time comes, it works for you. The first time Lance talked to me like I was the janitor, I let it slide. He walked past my desk without stopping, dropped a sticky note on my keyboard like I was a secretary. Need data on security breach risk analysis. CEO wants it simple. No please, no context, and sure as hell no clue what he was actually asking for. Look, I've been in corporate long enough to recognize a power play when I see one. You don't blow up the first time some young hotshot tries to flex. You watch, you document, you wait. But Lance didn't wait either. Within a week, I noticed I'd been removed from the security planning meetings. His assistant, a 28-year-old named Ashley, who once asked me if VPN stood for Very Private Network, was listed instead. Then came the shared drives. Files I'd created and maintained for years were suddenly being duplicated under folders named Morrison Security Initiative, with tags like Updated by Lance. Updated. More like lobotomized. He'd stripped out audit notes, removed regulatory cross-references, and turned my 3-tier verification system into a single checkbox marked Approved by CTO. No security professional worth their salt would have signed off on it. It wasn't a system. It was a suggestion box duct-taped to a lawn chair on fire. When I brought it up politely in our next one-on-one, he looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Gary," he said, using that fake, sincere voice they teach in management seminars, "I think maybe you're a little too close to this stuff. It's not that it's bad, it's just dense. We need scalable, agile frameworks." Scalable frameworks, I repeated. You removed verification steps for vendor access across 3 different compliance zones. That's not agile. That's a lawsuit with a red carpet rolled out for it. He smiled like he was playing chess with a pigeon and thought he was winning. "Trust the process," he said, standing up. "It's all being handled." Just like that, meeting over. I walked out feeling something colder than anger. That bureaucratic dread that creeps in when you realize someone who doesn't understand your job now controls it. Then came the reorganization announcement. I wasn't even invited to the meeting. My buddy in accounting forwarded me the slide deck with a "you didn't see this from me" email. There it was. Organization chart showing cybersecurity folded under technology operations. My name wasn't listed as head of anything, just senior security consultant, transitional. I scrolled through the whole presentation hoping it was a formatting error. Nope. Lance's name was at the top. CTO, Technology Operations, and Cyber Defense Modernization. Modernization. That's what they were calling it. I quietly reached out to legal, asked if they'd seen the changes. They hadn't. Then someone from IT mentioned my admin permissions were being reviewed for compliance. Funny thing was, my audit logs were cleaner than a preacher's browser history. Things got weird after that. My building access card stopped working for certain floors. I had to get buzzed into my own server room by an intern who called me Mr. Peterson, not even my right name. I found an empty conference room, locked the door, and opened my private backup files. Cross-checked the timestamps, and watched in real time as documents I'd written were being copied, renamed, and credited to Lance's team. Not improved, not updated, just stripped of my name and slapped with a Morrison Initiative watermark. The final straw was an email. Subject line, "Next steps, your role." 1 line inside. No greeting, no signature. Effective. Monday, you'll transition to senior consultant role under technology operations until reclassification is finalized. Senior consultant. 15 years of keeping this place from getting hacked into oblivion, and they were shuffling me off like a broken desk chair to the kids' table. I stared at that email for a long time. The fluorescent light above me buzzed like a dying bug. I didn't get mad. I didn't fire back an angry reply. I just opened a new document and typed, Intellectual Property Documentation, G. Patterson, Original Security Architecture Design. Saved it. Then I went for a walk. Not to cool down. To think. Because the moment you realize they're trying to erase you is the exact moment you start writing the ending they don't see coming. The meeting didn't even have the decency to happen in private. 3 people in the room. Lance, some HR rep named Jennifer, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, and a guy from talent optimization who probably learned management from YouTube videos. Lance kicked things off with the enthusiasm of a used car salesman. Gary, first off, we want to recognize the tremendous foundation you've built here. Real solid work. He paused, like he expected applause. But as part of our new agile realignment, we're evolving some existing roles to better serve operational efficiency. I could smell the corporate garbage coming a mile away. The passive-aggressive word soup they serve when they're too chicken to say we're gutting your job and giving it to someone who spells cybersecurity with a Y. I waited. Let the silence hang there. Jennifer jumped in. Your new title will be Senior Security Consultant, reporting to Technology Operations. She said it like she was offering me a gift card. Ashley Foster, 28 years old, fresh off a 6-month certification program in security innovation. Ashley was going to be my boss. I looked at the talent guy. He avoided my eyes like they were radioactive. Even he knew this wasn't a restructure. It was a slow-motion backstab in a business suit. No reduction in pay, Jennifer added quickly, like that made it better. It's just a repositioning. The org chart is flattening. Flattening, like a steamroller doesn't flatten everything in its path. I folded my hands. Do I keep system-level access? Lance cleared his throat. Actually, we've reassigned those credentials for security alignment purposes. Translation, we're locking you out before you can burn the place down. That's when I knew, not suspected, knew. They weren't just pushing me aside. They were trying to erase me. Take what I'd built, slap their names on it, and leave me rotting in a corner with the broken office furniture. I stood up. No raised voice. No scene. Just stood up and said, thanks for the clarity. Lance blinked. Sorry? Thank you, I said, calm as lake water before a storm. It's nice when things are finally spelled out. I walked straight out of that room, down the hallway past marketing where some intern was filming a TikTok video, past accounting where my buddy gave me that confused you, okay? Look, straight to my basement office. I had one cardboard box under my desk, pre-labeled, because somewhere deep down I'd seen this coming. I didn't take much. My logbooks, my backup drives, one coffee mug that read, "Trust me," I read the fine print, and a sealed manila envelope I'd prepared weeks ago labeled Legal IP Rights, System Documentation, Enclosed. I dropped it in the internal mail slot addressed to legal counsel. No return address, no note. Let the records show I gave them one chance to do the right thing. They declined. My badge wouldn't even get me on the elevator. Security had to buzz me out like I was a delivery guy returning the wrong package. I didn't rage, didn't throw the box or yell about injustice. I got in my truck, drove 1 block to the diner parking lot, pulled out my phone, and logged in. Not to Facebook, not to LinkedIn. I logged into the mirror backup server they didn't know existed. The one I'd set up 6 months ago after catching Lance poking around in file histories he had no business accessing. Everything was still there. The real documentation, the original architecture, the update history, and buried in the bottom of the root directory, one line of code I'd left like a signature, G. Patterson, original. Author V1, 0. Do not alter without attribution. My hands weren't shaking. They were steady, cold, precise. If they wanted to play games with my life's work, fine. But they forgot something important. I didn't just build that security system to protect the company. I built it to protect me. The next morning, my badge wouldn't even get me in the front door. I stood there in the lobby while Tony, the security guard who'd asked me to fast-track his nephew's vendor approval just last month, squinted at me like I was casing the joint. "New access restrictions," he mumbled, tapping his tablet like that explained everything. "I built the system that's locking me out," I told him. Tony didn't respond. Just buzzed me in like I was some temp showing up on the wrong day. I took the stairs. Not because the elevator was broken, but because I needed those 3 flights to burn this moment into my memory. By the time I reached my desk, now shoved next to the supply closet where the printer constantly jams, I wasn't feeling humiliated anymore. I was calculating. I set my box down and opened my laptop. Password still worked. They hadn't thought to lock me out completely yet. First mistake. There it was. The original file structure. The real one, not the watered-down mess Lance and his team were trying to pass off as innovation. G. Patterson, sexis, 0.0, time-stamped, backed up, authenticated through internal logs, and mirrored to an encrypted drive that they couldn't touch without a federal warrant. I copied everything to my personal external drive. Air-gapped. Untouchable. Then I printed one hard copy of the core system design. The one with my name stamped in the footer. The one with the proprietary notice I'd registered with the Copyright Office last year. I'd done that not because I thought they'd screw me over. I did it because I knew someday someone would try. I folded it neatly into a manila envelope, sealed it, wrote one line across the front in black Sharpie. Legal. Intellectual property rights. Do not open unless necessary. Then I walked it down to the legal department and slipped it into their inbox. No drama, no company-wide goodbye email. Just slipped it in like I was paying a parking ticket. I passed Ashley in the hallway. She was typing on her phone, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. I could have said something. Something sharp. Something true. But I didn't. Because Ashley would be crying into her ergonomic keyboard soon enough. I walked back to my desk, picked up my box, and headed for the door. As I passed through the lobby, Tony looked up. Maybe he wanted to say goodbye. Maybe sorry. Didn't matter. The door swung open. I stepped into the daylight, and while they thought I was leaving empty-handed, I'd just walked out with every piece I needed to take them apart. Legally. Quietly. With a smile. Because cybersecurity doesn't forget. And I wasn't just the guy who built the system. I was the system. The first crack didn't show up in some dramatic whistleblower leak. It showed up as a missing comma in a security configuration file. That's how fragile Lance's stolen Frankenstein was. The error triggered an automatic review request from the buyer's cybersecurity team. Simple, polite email. Hi, Lance. Confirming whether this protocol references 2022 Q4 standards or 2023 Q1 updates. There seems to be a discrepancy between the documentation and the actual implementation. Lance, of course, didn't know because Lance didn't write it. But Lance did what Lance does. He bluffed. All intentional, he replied. It's dynamic protocol logic. I'll have our documentation lead confirm. Which was funny because the documentation lead was Ashley. Ashley, who once asked me if SQL was a type of energy drink. At the all-hands meeting that week, Lance stood under a slideshow of shiny logos and merger terms and announced with toothpaste commercial confidence, "We're in final acquisition talks. Major opportunity here. Fortune 1000 buyer, and their technical team is already impressed with our security infrastructure overhaul." Said like he hadn't just duct-taped my life's work to his resume. I wasn't there, of course. I'd been scrubbed from the org chart, deleted from the mailing lists, buried under corporate buzzwords. But absence has weight, too. By the time the buyer's cybersecurity team got their hands on the documentation, things started humming with problems. See, the version Lance sent them was his modernized framework. All my authorship stripped out, half the verification logic removed because it slowed down approvals, and the other half duplicated across random workflows like some kind of security-themed Mad Libs. On the surface, it looked impressive. Color-coded charts, bold fonts, enough corporate jargon to choke a consultant. But the second they ran it through their automated security audit, it flagged 23 vulnerabilities in under 5 minutes. Most were small, technical, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But one was a missing encryption protocol for vendor database access that had previously saved us from an $800,000 breach in 2021. Gone. Deleted in Lance's agile optimization sprint. Here's the thing about Fortune 1000 cybersecurity teams. They don't like ambiguity. They don't like, "we'll get back to you." They definitely don't like security systems that generate different access permissions depending on which server you're logged into. A quiet Slack channel got created. Acquisition Technical Review. Inside it, a thread called G. Patterson. Sexis. Confirm source. That file name had survived. Buried deep in the metadata logs, not something Lance would know how to scrub. Certainly not something Ashley would catch between PowerPoint templates and motivational quote Mondays. At first they thought maybe it was a legacy placeholder, but then they cross-referenced it against our security incident reports. The timestamps matched perfectly with the period when our breach attempts dropped to 0. Then they checked the employee directory and found Garrett Patterson listed as Senior Cybersecurity Architect during that time frame, but not listed anywhere in the current org chart. That's the second crack. Because Fortune 1000 security teams aren't stupid. They've seen this movie before. Company slaps fresh paint on a broken system, cuts the architect out of the picture, then tries to sell the house at a premium. But buyers don't just purchase systems, they purchase expertise. And when the expertise mysteriously vanishes and the system starts showing stress fractures the moment you ask hard questions, they start digging. They always dig. Suddenly, Lance's weekly progress calls started running long. Suddenly, the buyer's team began requesting original development logs, source code documentation, security audit trails, and someone, maybe a paralegal, maybe an intern, remembered that envelope in the legal department inbox. The one marked, "Do not open unless necessary." It had been sitting there untouched for months. Until now. I didn't know any of this was happening. Didn't need to. Because when you build something right, the silence does all the talking. The acquisition meeting was supposed to be a victory lap, champagne, handshakes, and a signed deal that would make Lance look like a Silicon Valley genius in a polo shirt. The conference room was staged like a magazine photo shoot, stainless steel carafes, leather-bound presentation packets, a slideshow loaded with words like synergy and operational excellence. Lance sat at the head of the table wearing that executive smirk like it came with the job title. Ashley flanked him, tapping nervously at her tablet, pretending she understood the numbers in front of her. The buyer's legal team arrived exactly on time. 3 of them, led by a man named Scott Palmer, who had the kind of stillness you only develop after 20 years of watching powerful people hang themselves with their own rope. They didn't waste time with small talk. "Thank you for the documentation," Palmer said, opening his leather portfolio. "We've reviewed your cybersecurity infrastructure." A few questions came up. Lance nodded, all swagger and teeth. "Of course. Fire away. Our system's rock solid. Built it from the ground up with modern operational frameworks." Palmer raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Because according to the metadata in your version control logs, The foundational architecture appears to have been authored under G. Patterson. Sec Sys v1.0. He said it plainly. No emphasis. Just dropped it into the room like a live grenade. The air got thin. Ashley blinked. Lance chuckled nervously. Oh, that's probably just a legacy file name. We've completely overhauled the structure. Palmer didn't look away. Odd. That legacy file name aligns precisely with the only period where your security incident reports show 0 successful breaches. After that time frame, let's just say the vulnerability rate climbed significantly. He leaned forward. Tell me, who is Garrett Patterson? Silence. Lance's face twitched. He was part of a transitional team, no longer with the company. Part of our restructuring initiative. I see, Palmer said slowly. And was Mr. Patterson consulted during the preparation of these acquisition materials? Lance opened his mouth, closed it. It's complicated. Palmer nodded. I'll be direct. The foundation of your cybersecurity infrastructure, the very system we're investing in, appears to have been authored by someone who's no longer here, who hasn't been credited, and whose absence raises serious concerns about intellectual property rights. He turned to his associate. We need to speak with Mr. Patterson directly. Lance's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Ashley went pale. The CFO tried to interject something about legal having cleared everything. Palmer didn't even look at him. Without direct clarification from the original architect, our team is recommending we pause this acquisition. We have concerns about authorship, IP ownership, and potential misrepresentation. Then Palmer reached into his portfolio and slid a printout across the table. It was a screenshot of my original system documentation. At the bottom, in clean Arial font, was the line I'd embedded years ago. Authored by G. Patterson v1.0. Proprietary IP, registered 11/13/2019. Underneath that, the access log from our internal server. Time-stamped, immutable. Lance stared at it like it was a death certificate. Palmer stood up, buttoning his jacket. We'll expect a call from Mr. Patterson within 48 hours, if he's willing. And if he's not? Lance asked, voice barely above a whisper. Palmer looked at him, not with anger, not with pity, but with that sterile detachment that only seasoned lawyers can deliver. Then this entire acquisition is based on compromised assets. They walked out without another word, leaving Lance, Ashley, and half the executive team blinking in the wreckage. The call came at 7:18 a.m., while I was drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, a text. Mr. Patterson, this is Scott Palmer, with Blackstone Legal. Buyer-side cybersecurity review. Confidential discussion requested. Available today? No emojis, no corporate fluff. Just the kind of message that makes your pulse slow instead of spike. I called back. Palmer answered on the first ring. Mr. Patterson, thank you for your time. His tone wasn't friendly. It was precise, like every syllable was billable. We've reviewed your original security architecture. Impressive work. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say anything. We'd like to schedule a technical review. Today. Our internal security leads plus 1 compliance auditor. Who else will be on the call? I asked. No one from your former employer. This is confidential. I paused. I'll be available in 30. The video conference was secure, the kind that requires 2-factor authentication just to enter. 3 profiles appeared. S. Palmer, R. Singh, Audit, D. Lee, Compliance. Mr. Patterson, Singh began, walk us through the design principles behind the original security system. specifically the logic protocols flagged in version 1.0. I started slow. Authentication hierarchies, access verification, the 3-layer fallback system that Lance's team had gutted into a single, approved by CTO checkbox. They asked real questions, technical questions. Why dual-path vendor authentication instead of standard single sign-on? Because EU regulations were changing. I built in anticipatory compliance logic. The delay protocol in Section 4B, deliberate verification loop. Stalls system access if the audit trail shows more than 5 unauthorized modification attempts in 30 days. Prevents tampering. Dead silence. That function isn't in the current system. No. Lance removed it. Lee unmuted. You left a comment in the original code. Line 847, read it. If this loop is removed, liability buffer is compromised. If someone strips this out, they don't understand what they're removing. They don't deserve the system. Palmer leaned in. We'd like to proceed with the acquisition, but there's a condition. Our recommendation is to proceed only if you, Garrett Patterson, agree to serve as Chief Information Security Officer for the merged entity. Not would you like to. Not we're offering. Only if. I'll need full system authority. No intermediaries. Granted. Direct, reporting to executive leadership, of course. And I wanted in writing that the original architecture was authored by me. Already drafted. Attribution clause is on page 2. A document appeared on my screen. The security infrastructure currently known as Morrison Security Initiative was authored, developed, and implemented by Garrett Patterson during his tenure as senior cybersecurity architect. You understand what this means for the existing team? We don't want what they built on top of your work. We want what you actually built. And we want you running it. See you at the next meeting, I said, and ended the call. The final meeting was different. No untouched pastries, no corporate theater, just business. I walked in with Palmer and the buyer's GC. Lance's confident posture had evaporated. Ashley looked like she wanted to disappear. Palmer got straight to it. Before we finalize terms, there's the matter of authorship regarding the cybersecurity infrastructure being acquired. I opened my folder, pulled out my original documentation, and slid it across to the buyer's GC. He read aloud. Security Architecture Documentation. Original file name. G. Patterson. Sex SSIS. 0. IP registration US 287731A. Sole author. Garrett Patterson. This confirms our technical review, he said. The system we're acquiring was created by Mr. Patterson. Lance tried one last desperate play. We've made substantial improvements. You broke it, I said calmly. You removed core verification logic. You deleted authentication protocols. You didn't improve anything. The buyer's GC turned to me. Do you accept the position of Chief Information Security Officer? I do. Palmer slid the contracts across the table. The signature pages were already prepared. I signed with my own pen. Blue ink, decisive strokes. Lance sat frozen, watching his career implode in real time. Ashley closed her laptop, defeat written across her face. The immediate aftermath was swift and surgical. Within 24 hours, Lance was pursuing new opportunities in strategic planning. Corporate speak for exile to a windowless office where he'd count paper clips until his severance ran out. Ashley transferred to marketing, where her PowerPoint skills might actually be useful. But the real satisfaction came in the weeks that followed. I moved into my new office on the 12th floor. Actual windows, actual respect. My first act was hiring back 3 senior security engineers who'd been right-sized in Lance's modernization push. The second was implementing my full security architecture, the version with all the safeguards intact. Within a month, we'd identified and patched 17 vulnerabilities that Lance's streamlined system had left wide open. 6 months later, I'm sitting in that office, looking out at a view that doesn't include a single server rack or fluorescent light. The nameplate on my door reads Garrett Patterson, Chief Information Security Officer. The acquisition went through smoothly. The Fortune 1000 company got exactly what they paid for: a bulletproof security system built by someone who understood that real cybersecurity isn't about buzzwords and agile frameworks. It's about patient, methodical work done by people who've earned the right to be trusted with the keys. That security system I built 15 years ago is still running, still protecting, still doing its job. Because when you build something right, with your name embedded in every line of code, it doesn't just survive corporate politics. It outlasts them. Thanks for listening to an old tech guy's story. Sometimes the good guys do win. You just have to be patient enough to let your work speak for itself. And always, always keep backups.